And we have somebody actually on the line right now wanting to talk about God versus Satan. It's a perfect segue into this. Let's talk to Anne, she, her from California. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello, Dr. Ben. Hello, Sophie. I called a while back and I talked to Sophie and Christy about adoption and abortion. But the reason why I'm calling today, because you're bringing up Satan or demons and satanic panic. And like, I listen to these shows and I like the way some of the theists talk about God and Satan, like, they'll say God is all powerful, but he designs us in a way where we have free will. Like he has a plan, but we also have free will. And, and because, and they'll say they're being tempted by the devil. And it makes me wonder, is Satan more powerful than God? Because that's the impression I get from these discussions.
Yeah, I feel like I identify with that question too, because I think that is Satan more powerful than God? And do we have agency, or are we just the playthings of higher beings, right? Because if it's just this ping pong between Satan and God, and we're told we have free will, but it can only be used to make the one singular right choice and avoid the one singular wrong choice, why do we even exist? What is our purpose in this cosmic drama? I think the idea that Satan, himself, whatever gender we have for Satan, was so rebellious against God, that idea that Satan rebelled and that's why he is evil, does give the impression that Satan is more powerful and that he's inherently a threat to God. If God's plan is that we are all saved, that's actually God's plan, but we might do things that get in the way of that, or Satan might do things that get in the way of that, then Satan consistently thwarts God pretty effectively, if not the majority of the time. So I would sort of argue that, yeah, it definitely seems like Satan is more powerful than God. In this instance, I would agree with you.
Right, and you have things like the story of Job, where apparently God was like tricked into hurting his own follower. And it's like, how do we have all these stories of God not course correcting in the way that he could if he was omniscient and omnipotent, right? Like if he could do all these things, why is he letting so many things get in the way? And if he knew that the angels were going to turn on him and go become Satan and the demons, why did he create angels under those rules? Like, it seems like there were bugs in the code, and these have kind of become features of the simulation and not actually been much of a problem. Like, it seems like they're all under what God is wanting. Like, they're all under God's plan. So, like, was Satan part of God's plan? Like, were the demons part of God's plan? It sounds like hell, even part of that is part of God's plan. It sounds like the plan is the problem here, and not like the plan's a problem and the execution is a problem.
Seems like he didn't have a lot of great vision for where he was going with this one, which is a little weird if you're all knowing.
Yeah.
How did you grow up, Anne, if that's something I might ask? Did you grow up being told that, demons were real and among us?
Yeah, in a way. I grew up very large Catholic family. I had 9 siblings. We were all named after saints by my mom. My dad converted from Christian Science to Catholicism to marry my mom. So we were like really Catholic. There were crucifixes and all over the house. And she told us we had guardian angels, and she didn't really talk that much about demons, but she, kind of did. And, yeah, kind of, demons and hell and, yeah.
I feel like a lot of the iconography we associate with demons comes from Catholicism. I think about the crucifixes. I think about, think about the movie The Exorcist and how, that was such a hit, I guess. And people felt like it made them really believe in demons. And it sort of was a weird bit of propaganda almost for the priesthood to come and save everyone. It's interesting because my experience with demons comes from a very evangelical standpoint. So it's, that maybe it wasn't talked about quite as much, even though there was maybe some underlying belief that it was there, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was an underlying belief, but not really talked about much. So.
Yeah.
And we were also, Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, well, we were also taught, like, my mom would never say, pray to God. I mean, she did, but sometimes, pray to this saint, pray to that saint, pray, pray to saints. Well, I don't know how that was supposed to work, but.
It feels like there was just a lot of middlemen. Demons for Satan, saints for God, guardian angels. You've got like everybody. There's a whole crowd happening here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, where does God fit in?
It's all. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I also had another question as I was starting to call in, and Dr. Ben brought up about women being disproportionately, blamed for the evil coming into the world, of course, Adam and Eve, obviously, and if it's all part of God's plan, then she was going with the plan. I don't know, but so she, that was, but I also think of the Pandora's box story. Yeah, where she gets a box and she wasn't supposed to open it, or all this evil, and then she opens the box. So those are like two stories I can think of. I don't know if there are others, but I think just those two alone tell me, maybe
it almost
disproportionately.
It almost seems like across a lot of the patriarchal cultures back then, that these stories were used as a means to control women. Like, it seems like Pandora's box was maybe a message like, hey, women, stop being so curious about the world you live in. Just stay quiet, stay in the home, and let the men do that part. It seems like Adam and Eve is the same way, like blaming the women so that they have to be subservient. And it definitely isn't accurate. If you think about gender as a spectrum, and within, even if you fully identify with one side or the other, there's still a range of personalities, a range of skill sets, a range of interests. And to say that one group in its entirety is number one to blame for all of the garbage in this world, and also that all of them are equally inferior to another group of people, is very inaccurate. And also, that it just tells us that maybe that was the intent. The intent was to keep women calm and quiet and unheard. So
yeah, but I also think, look at how sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I also think about how it plays out in society today, like when a woman is sexually assaulted or a victim of domestic violence or something, and they blame her. What was she wearing? How was she acting? She shouldn't have talked back. She shouldn't have done this. She shouldn't have worn that. It's like saying that. Yeah.
No, I think something that the idea of, like, we kind of mentioned the concept of the IVLP earlier in the pre-show, because those documentaries and discussions kind of came out about it. And there's a huge focus on demons and on protection. And when I think about how victims in general, but women in specific here, get blamed for anything that happens to them. I think about the umbrella of protection that was advocated for largely by the IABLP, but it did seep over into other evangelical communities growing up, like the ones that I was a part of, where there's supposed to be God, and then the father in the household, and then the mother, and then the children. And if you step outside of your umbrella of protection, bad things might happen to you. And that would essentially be your choice, because you've left the hierarchy that God created for you to keep you safe. And this idea that we might say something like, what was she wearing? Or we might say something like, well, was she drinking? Or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, it's really all just ways to say that you stepped outside of the realm that we have decided you should be safe in, and we are not going to protect you outside of that. We're not going to blame anyone for victimizing you outside of that. You're not playing your role correctly by drinking, by dressing in a way that I might disapprove of, by whatever it is that we get blamed for. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's just sort of that take of, you need to stay in this culturally bound area.
Right. Yeah. What was I going to say? I had something to add to that, and it just left my mind. But, okay, yeah, but sometimes this is where, sometimes even within that umbrella, women, little girls, children are victimized by that, within the umbrella. They could have a family member.
Yeah.
And, or someone in the church. Yeah. Abusing them. So, and then they still get blamed.
100%. I remember, watching a sentencing hearing for someone who had been accused of CSA, for YouTube purposes, I'll call it that. And one of the things that this person said was that the person who had been accused, who had pled guilty, this was the sentencing part of things, was that they had evil inside. They must have some evil inside them, because they were a very religious person. And the thing that really stuck out to me in saying it that way was that it wasn't you. That somehow, you didn't just hurt children in a really deplorable, disgusting way because you wanted to. You did it because there was a demon. You did it. It's not really your fault if you are, this was a religious man, arguably head of a family, when it was him victimizing someone, it wasn't really his fault, right?
Right. And then that whole free will thing flies out the window.
Right. So. Yeah. What good is following a God if you can't even get the evil out from inside of you that would cause you to victimize the most vulnerable people?
You have free will to stay within your own little umbrella. That's what it means. Like, you don't actually, you have the free will to get out of your umbrella, but don't, or bad things will happen. So you have free will up until the point that you start disobeying, and then it's a problem. And
if you're the person who is in charge, like a man in the church might be, then you get to come up with whatever theology gets you off the hook for that. And others need to be beholden to it, because you can back it up with a Bible verse and say that it's actually a demon.
Oh, yeah. Well, and these are the groups that don't have an issue with slavery either. So it's like, sure, the whole thing we got into of how you discipline your child if they go out and, expose themselves to demons or whatever. It's like that stuff sure ends up being justified because they can already justify this other stuff. So it's not like they are making an exception for this is one thing we're going to accept. No, they're accepting some very horrendous things in an attempt to beat the evil out of you, to beat the demons out of you. Also, with that stigma related to medical conditions and psychological conditions, the fact that there's a lot of victim blaming there of you only got this clinical illness because you did something wrong. And that's a mentality that absolutely needs to go away. And like people think that that stuff is going away, and to a certain extent it is. But there's still a lot of communities, especially where they're not accepting of modern science and modern medicine. They are still believing this stuff, and they still, especially with regard to children who don't have a choice in the matter, don't have autonomy in their own healthcare. It's still very prevalent. So I think we still need to, talk about these issues. And I'm happy that we're bringing a lot of this up, because it's there's a lot of people, I think, even in the side chat, that are saying that they've been affected by this very topic.
Yeah. You mean the topic of,
just using whatever is in reality to turn it back on the other person and say, well, it's your fault. It's your fault that this happened to you. So.
Yep. Or a lot of times I think it will be couched as, it's not necessarily your fault, but you could have prevented it. You didn't have to put yourself in that situation, like that. Maybe it's not directly your fault, but if you hadn't been doing this thing, then it wouldn't have happened. It's very similar to when my older brother, who's wonderful, I love him, he's great. He's less than 2 years older than me, though, so we were both idiot children at the same time. When he would close his eyes and swing a stick and say that it was my fault if I got hit with it because his eyes were closed, and then he would start running toward me just with his eyes closed swinging a stick. But it was still my fault, because if I didn't manage to dodge, well, I was the one with my eyes open. So, it was just me. We can construct situations where we are never to blame, where everyone else has done something that's equally as wrong or more wrong. And I think that the modern church, probably the church for all of time, but I exist right now, is very good at doing that, And if you are someone who, I can't think of a single old patriarch of the church, James Dobson just died this week, any of these old, terrible, decrepit private jet owners who isn't a disgusting, foul person, but who hasn't built a career on saying that everyone else is. Like, that's literally their job.
I do not shed tears for James Dobson. Not. He was very anti-gay, and my son is gay, and I've always worried about him. But with Trump taking office and guys like him spreading this stuff around for decades, I worry about him even more.
Yeah, so we have to stop. We can't go into the political side of things, but we can kind of steer back to the evangelical piece. But yeah, we're in agreement. There's a lot of people, particularly within the church, that are, spreading harmful ideas, and that are getting people hurt. So it's important that we make sure that our ideas are coming from the right place, and that we're not hurting the next generation because of these ideas.
But then you get people like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just, because he was really into, beating kids, like, as a form of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't he? Yeah. And believe me, I was beaten brutally, most all my siblings were, but it did not help. It made me scared of my parents, but it didn't make me respect them.
Yeah, I feel like that is a very good summation of the impact of beating or physically hurting a kid, is that we often use the term respect and associate it actually really with fear. And particularly when we're thinking about a family, and some families that might view themselves as more traditional, and they talk about how you need to have respect for older generations. What that means a lot of the time is just fear of them, but you're not going to look to them as somebody who's wise about how to live a life. You're not going to look to them as someone who can help solve problems because they've already shown that they can't. They've already shown that they're going to resort to the basest form of, I guess, a human throwing a fit, which is hurting a child. Yeah, I think that's just a really, really good way to put it. Like, I think one of the things that in marriage and family therapy you always talk about is that you can't not communicate. Like, people might think they're good at communication, bad at communication, whatever. But no matter what you're doing, it's communicating something. Hitting a kid is never communicating, oh, here's actually the right way to do things. It's just communicating, I am unregulated as an adult. I don't like the thing you did, so you're going to get hurt. That's all that is communicating. Very few people, I think, are able to really remember consistently why they were actually getting hit, spanked, whatever. They just remember that they got hit and that their parent is not someone they can trust. Like, what a horrible way to go about life. What a horrible thing to do to your child.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we got beat with tree branches. So, yeah. Yeah, it was rough. It was painful. There was no way I was going to do that when I had a child of my own. I kind of went maybe the opposite way. I might have been a little too permissive with my son. So I don't think that's good either.
I think that's true. It can be difficult. And I think it's actually a pretty common response when it's like, I got hit a lot, so I'm going to, just do the opposite. But I think it's interesting because sometimes we say that parents who do things like hit are actually strict when realistically they're just capricious. They're unpredictable because if you are a parent who is using violence as a discipline strategy, then it's usually not going to be equally distributed in a proportional way for every offense. And so it's not really strictness. It's just random violence. And I would say that I do prefer permissive parenting to that.
Yeah, I do too. But that comes with its own set of, problems too.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Any other topics or questions that you want to address?
I'm not sure. I mean, I just, I'd say this is probably my favorite show out of all of them. You guys are always so great
love
here.
that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always wanted to talk. I've talked to Sofia before, and, you just are so sweet. And I've always wanted to talk to you, Dr. Ben. So I was really happy. Actually, I did have a question, but it's way off the topic of what we were talking about. It's just something I'm curious about. And as a medical doctor, I just want to, okay, so, I was born in a family of 10 kids. My older brother was number 4, I was number 5, and my sister was number 6. And we were all born with aortic valve defects. And we're the only ones that were born that way. And it's just weird that it happened to the 3 middle kids, I thought. And I don't know if that's something that's common or...
not necessarily with the order of the children. It's possible that there's some connective tissue disorder in the family or some kind of, congenital thing that is already kind of in your family or was prone to happen anyway. And just the lottery kind of happened the way it did. I mean, the more children you have in a family, the higher likelihood of, something being expressed in the genes of those kids. So it's probably chance. There's a lot of different factors that could have led to that. But I don't think the order of the children necessarily made that happen. More likely, events within the DNA itself or within kind of the events leading up to the delivery. So. if that clears it up a little bit.
All right. Yeah, I've always been so curious about that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
So
Thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Yeah.
Anything else you got?
Yeah, no, this has been
Anything else? All right.
No, not right now, but if I would love to call back sometime with another topic.
Definitely.
I mean, you guys are just so great, you know. You're so nice to the people, you know. So I really enjoy the show. It's really my favorite one. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
You
You
too.
too. Bye.
Bye, Ann.
Okay, bye.